Well, Dad, what about the first time that y'all maybe thought that Mama was pregnant with me?
Well, I had been forced to take a job. Well, I already had the job, and my job took me about 40 or 50 miles away from my home, sawing in a handle mill. And I was staying in a camp, in a mill camp, and coming home on weekend when I could. And I come home that weekend, and Zella told me she wasn't feeling too good. Well, I didn't think a whole lot about it. That was on Saturday afternoon. But all day Sunday, she kept telling me that she was sick, that she wasn't feeling good at all. And she even asked me not to go back to work the next week. Well, hell, I had obligations and responsibilities. I had to work in order to bring in food for the family and keep things going. So my boss that I was working for, he was supposed to pick me up late that afternoon, Sunday afternoon, and carry me back to the darn mill camp. And it wasn't too long till time for him to pick me up. And Zella was still complaining and didn't want me to go back to work the next week. And I thought, well, hell, I just had to work next week. There wasn't no way around it. And I finally told her, I said, well, I tell you what. I said, I'm going to carry you to the doctor and see if you're sick. I guess I kind of doubted her even really being sick. I got the idea back in the back of my mind, I guess, that she just didn't want me to go to work. So I carried it to this damn old quack doctor. And he said no, that wasn't anything much wrong with her. She was late with her period, but he'd give her some medicine that would straighten her out. She'd be all right in a few days. And I thought, well, that satisfies me. I'll go on to work and everything be all right. So she started taking that medicine. And that evening, the guy that I was working for, he comes by and picks me up, carried me on back to the mill. We had a camp at the mill. And I worked my butt off all the week. And I thought, well, old doctor, he knew what he was talking about. Zella will be all right when I get home next weekend. And I didn't worry about it at all. Well, she didn't have any way in the world to contact me. No telephone, no nothing. All she could do was just wait till I come home the next weekend. Well, by gosh, when I got home the next weekend, she had already miscarried. And her and her mom and daddy was telling me all about what had happened.
She had miscarried?
Yeah, she'd miscarried this next week.
That's supposed to have been it, huh?
That's supposed to have been it. And I thought, well, it's all over with. I was wrong and she was right. I don't know if I told her that or not. I don't know if I admitted it to her or not, but still in my own mind, I felt like that she was right and I was wrong. So I spent the weekend there with her and her mom and daddy and James. And on Sunday evening, my boss man picked me up and carried me back to the damn sawmill, the handle mill camp. And everything apparently was wrong, was all right. But Zella wasn't doing too good.
Why is that?
She just never did get along like a woman should be after a miscarriage.
Looked like she wasn't really over it, huh?
No. Right. So, I don't know I come on back home. We finished that tract timber where we was, and I come on back home, and we went to work on another tract timber, and we moved to that tract timber, and I was home all the time instead of being away from home except on weekends. And so many months later, she felt a baby kicking. And I thought, God darn, what the hell happened? So I carries her back to this same damn old quack doctor that give her that medicine to bring her periods on. And he examined her, and he said, well, I've been examining women. He told how many years. But he said this at one time I slipped up. Said she was pregnant with twins, and she lost one, and she still carrying the other one. I thought, hell, I never heard of such a thing. I couldn't believe it. I didn't have any confidence in him in the first place. And I took off to another doctor and asked him if that was possible. And he told me, he said, yeah, that's very rare. But he said, it has happened. And he said, Dr. Patterson might be right. That was his name, wasn't it? Dr. Patterson.
Yeah. Down there.
And I still couldn't believe it. So I went to Dr. Hood at Holcomb. I had more confidence in him than any doctor I ever knew. And I talked to him about it. And he told me the same thing that the second doctor had told me. And I thought, well, maybe the old bastard is right. So I accepted that she was pregnant with twins and lost one of them and was still carrying the other one. It was hard for me to believe, but I couldn't believe anything else. There were 3 doctors that had told me that. So I couldn't believe anything else. So that was that. I had to accept it.
Well, Dale, let's get Mama's story on that. Mom, how did you feel when you first realized that you're going to have to go back to a doctor again, and you're going to have to, once Dad checked with Dr. Hood, what did you think about that? What was your feelings about that when you felt like you had a baby inside of you that you didn't know you had inside of you?
Well, I was kind of like him. I didn't know what to think about it. But I know there was something there, and it must be a baby.
She had miscarried, but there was a baby kicking in it.
Yeah, and I knowed I'd had one to kick me before, James, you know, and I knowed how that felt. It just felt just like that.
Well, did the kicking stop and it started again, huh?
Yeah, just like you know how they did. Kick and start again. And, of course, I was about, how many months was I then? 3 or 4, wasn't it? Yeah, you know, about 4, it's been 4.5 months.
Yeah.
With Ray. And, of course, I lost a twin. That was about 2 months gone, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
2 months. And about 4.5 months, then I began feeling that. And I told Verlon, I said, I want you to feel. I said, can't you feel?
Didn't you know you was pregnant?
No, I didn't know.
Didn't know you was pregnant?
No, I did not
She had
know.
miscarried.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. You
that's
miscarried.
right. I'd miscarried, but I know there's something still there. Because it wasn't, you know, well, it's supposed to be there, I know, but I mean,
That's unusual.
it's unusual.
Sure is.
And so I kept getting bigger and bigger. And I'd have Verlon, I'd say, now that's a kick, and now you feel. Well, you must be right, he said. And so, sure I was. Sure was right. I was about, he moved, you come and moved me and James down there with you, down there. Where's that place at? Where Beer and Will stayed with us down there.
Harmontown.
Yeah, Harmontown. And that's where I felt the first movement of Ray. And I was telling Verlon, he couldn't hardly believe it, you know. Of course, I couldn't in a way. But I knowed it was something that I'd experienced before. Well, sure enough, then, we stayed down there about 6 weeks before we went back up to see my mother and dad. And he said, he went and bought me a Tupelo, so bought me a big long coat for me. And I had that coat on, you know. And he walked in, and he couldn't wait to tell Mama about it. And he said, well, Miss Crocker said, have Zella to open up her coat there and show me. And I opened that coat up in the well and said, Lord of mercy, what's the matter with you?
She didn't know you was pregnant.
No! I said, what's the matter with you? I said, well, I'm pregnant. Well, you ought to know you're not. You said. I sure was.
What'd your daddy say?
He didn't say much about it, you know, like her. She just went wild about things like that, you know. Well, sure enough, just kept on. I know I carried you 9 months.
But you start preparing yourself for having another baby, huh?
Yeah, I was getting ready for you. Well, we weren't able to afford to buy very much, but we was living a little here and living. Miss Taylor crocheted the caps and things like that. You know. We'd all spliced in and.
Why was it that there was a doctor there when James was born? There wasn't one when I was born. Why was that? Explain why that was so. You know why? Why there was a doctor there and there wasn't no doctor there when I was born?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You know, Verlon was working all the time and all, but he didn't have no money. He couldn't, you know, get no doctors like you do now, 'cause he knows that, don't you, Verlon?
Right.
You didn't have money. Well, he had the doctor come out to see me. I don't know how many times he had the doctor come out to see me, thinking I was ready to have it. And he'd come out there. False alarm. And so then, whenever it did happen, Verlon called this year, same old doctor, I don't know if he'd come out and take care of it. And he wouldn't come.
Who was that?
What was that old doctor's name? He wouldn't come unless the money was right down. And Verlon said, I ain't got it. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I just have not got the money. I can't get it.
Was that almost time for me to be born?
Yeah, that's just, well, I done taking sick to have you be born.
And I told her and her mom and daddy, I said, well, all I can do is
get Miss Lou.
wrap up, and it was raining, a cold drizzle of rain. And I said, all I can do is go over and get Miss Luther and see if it's time for the baby to be born.
She was a midwife.
She was a midwife. So I wrapped up and took off and walked about 1.5 miles.
And back then, Dad, it wasn't no, like now, they tell you exactly about what date it's going to be here and all that stuff. There wasn't no such time as that. You just knew it within a month or so.
Nature took care of that.
Yeah, but now they tell you it'll be here on the 14th of August or something. But then they couldn't tell you that. You just had to hope there would be a good time. Huh?
So I had got out and knocked myself out to get a doctor so many times, and it was a false alarm, that I thought, well, this might be the same thing again. And why don't I just go wrap up and go over and get Miss Luther and get her to come over here and see if this is the night that it's supposed to happen. So that's what I did.
Miss Luther was a midwife, wasn't she?
Yeah, right. And I had rented a house. I had rented a house from her, and her youngest son had worked with me at the mill and this, that, and the other.
You knew she delivered a lot of babies, huh?
Oh, yeah. She had delivered a gang of babies, and she was more or less like one of the family. And I looked at her at that time as one of the best friends I ever had. She run a little old grocery store, and I'd go in there and buy anything I wanted, whether I had the money or not. And she was just kind of like one of the family.
Well, where was her grocery store at, Dad?
At Buckhorn, Mississippi.
Buckhorn.
Out west of Bonatoc, Mississippi. And I got over there, she was in bed. And she got up and answered the door when I knocked on the door. There wasn't anybody there except her. She had 2 sons that wasn't married, but wasn't either one of them at home. And I told her what I was over there for. And she said, well, I'll go over there and see what's going on. And I walked out of the room, and she started putting her clothes on. And after a while, I walked back in there, and she was putting on some boots that come up about halfway to her knees. And when she got dressed and ready to go, she reaches under the bed. Now, Zella don't know this till yet. And I'll tell you something that you don't know. She reaches under the bed, and she comes out with a gallon glass jug, clear glass. And it was about half full of white lightning. Had I ever told you about that, Zella? No, I don't think I had.
I don't remember.
And she picked it up and took the top off of it. And she said, you want a drink of this? I said, I think, by gosh, it would do me good. And I took a swallow of it, handed it back to her. And she turned it up and took a hell of a big swallow of it.
Is that
She
right?
said, let's go. She put the top back on it and pushed it back under the bed. And she already had her coat, her heavy coat and everything. Oh, it was cold. And she had her boots on and everything, and we took off.
This was April 1935.
Yeah.
But there, it was cold in April.
It was cold. And it was, I wouldn't say for sure that it was freezing, but if it wasn't, it was darn near freezing.
Well,
for
sometimes back there, you know, it snows in April.
Yeah. So we took off. We had a gravel road for about a half a mile, and then the rest of it was just through the woods, like a log road. We got over there, and she examined Zella, and she turned around to me, and she said, well, the navel cord is around the baby's neck, and says he's going to strangle to death if I can't get that navel cord straightened out where he can be born. Says that's the reason he's not already here. So she kept working, and finally she said, well, I've got that navel cord from around his neck. Says he should be here in a little bit. And sure enough, it wasn't but a little bit till you was there bawling your head off.
Well,
And boy, was that a relief to me.
Well, let me get Mama's observation on that thing, Mom. Come on, Mom.
She probably don't know too much about it after that.
Well, but what were your feelings when all this is going on, Mom? What did you think about it?
Well, I thought while it was being born, I was going to die. I just felt like, you know.
Lots of pain?
Oh, Lord. Whew. I never will forget them pain. And so,
It was a lot different than when Tiger was born.
oh, yeah. See, he gave me shots, you know, a doctor and Nanny did.
Yeah, but you just taking this just on your
I
own.
just let nature have its way. I just laying there, firing down everything he come. Well, I know.
But you was glad to see Miss Luther, wasn't you?
Ooh, yeah. When she come in, she just told me and then my misery just stopped. I couldn't hardly have a pain, just laying there. And and your head was about half bone. Misery stopped right
That's why she knew the cord was running.
Yeah.
My head was out.
Well, so in a little bit, then it kind of started on me a little bit. She said, now, as long as you can, you just hold on and bear down. So get your breath there once in a while and just keep bearing down. And I kept bearing down. I thought that was the longest pain I ever went through in my life. And a little bit then, why, out you fly. Just a crying like a what, just strong.
And you knew the baby was
And now you know what I said? I said, thank the Lord for that. That's what I said.
And you knew the baby was alive.
Yeah, I know I said it's alive, and thank the Lord for that. And so I just laying there, you know, and she was taking care of the baby and tying the cord and everything down there. Well, Verlon was thrilled to death because it's over, you know, and I was too. Well, then he went around there, you know, and looked. He couldn't wait to come back and tell me what it was. Well, we got us another little boy. I said, make no difference what it is, I'm so glad it's over. That's what I said. Sure enough, we had the little boy. Not a little, that was a big one. Ooh, wait. Miss Lou such as you know, weighed over 10 pounds. That
Over
she'd
10
handled
pounds.
all kinds of babies, and that was about as big a baby she'd ever had.
He was a whopper.
And you was pretty when you was born. You was beautiful.
And poor little old James, when he
Oh,
was born.
poor little thing didn't look good, but he made a pretty baby after he built that.
He did.
Yeah.
But when James was first born, his grandma said, Lord have mercy, that's the prettiest baby I ever saw. And I walked around there and looked at him. His lips was all swelled up, and over his eyes it looked like balloons. And I thought, gosh almighty, if you call that pretty, you hadn't got very much sense. And I said to myself, if he's going to call me daddy, he's got to start looking better than that. But Chunk was altogether different. When he got in the world.
Well, I think maybe that y'all was so tickled to death that everything was right, you know, when everything should have gone wrong.
There wasn't a thing
That-
wrong with Ray. He was just a healthy baby, wasn't
Right.
he? Nothing wrong with him.
But during the time that you was carrying him, you had hell.
I
you
had
went-
him. Lord, I had him.
Right.
Folks might think I'd have put it on, but I couldn't help
From
it.
the time you got pregnant with him in a tent
Yeah.
until he was born, you had hell.
I had it. I sure did.
You got pregnant where, Dad?
In the tent.
Where'd your mama get pregnant?
In a tent.
In a tent?
Right across the road from my damn sawmill where I was setting blocks. And I thought about that a lot of times. It was in daytime. Now this might be embarrassing to your mama. And I can't figure out to save my life where James was during that time. James was 5 years old, and he might have been off somewhere playing, but it was in daytime. And she told me when this was over with, she said, well, I got pregnant. And I started laughing. I said, you didn't do no such thing. I said, what gave you that idea? She said, well, I don't know, but said I did. I said, you didn't do no such thing. And I laughed at her about it. But by gosh, she was right.
Well, and to me,
I forget where James was when she got pregnant with you.
well, that's
Whether
fast.
he was out playing or if he was asleep. Do you remember where James
He
was?
used to go to somebody's house, sir. That little old boy. He might have been up there playing with him. I don't know.
But y'all can understand though why that's fascinating to me. I hope you can understand why it's fascinating to me. It really is. Cause you know the whole bit, you know, about the miscarriage and
in the daytime. If Zella was right about it, and evidently she was. But she told me, she said, well, I got pregnant. And I laughed at her about it. But by gosh, 9 months later, you were born. So I guess she was right.
sure she was right.
Bound to be.
And Mama, after I was born, where'd y'all live then?
We lived there with Mom and Papa, didn't we? There, you know, for a while.
Buckhorn.
Yeah,
At Buckhorn?
yeah. We was Buckhorn a while.
Y'all making a crop or something?
No.
No, my daddy had a little garden, something, I don't know. Verlon worked a little sawmill. And
I was looking for a job in a handle mill.
he didn't have no job then, did he?
No.
And you remember Mama had a bunch of strawberries in the garden?
Yeah.
And you'd go out there every day and pick strawberries.
And I went out there and tried to rob a.
What do you want?
So after I was born, and then what happened then?
Well, I went back and got a job with the same guy that I had worked for before she got pregnant. Back sawing in a darn handle mill. And Fred Sanders. He was a guy that, well, it'd be hard to describe the type of guy he was. He would lead you to believe that he was the best friend you ever had, as long as you was working your butt off and making him some money. But if he could beat you out of every penny you worked for, he'd do it. That was Fred Sanders. And I didn't have any other place to work, so I went back to work for him. And I don't know. From that, we took off. Where did we move to after Chunk was born?
I was sitting here studying about the same thing.
I can't even remember where we moved to and where I went to work after he was born.
Hawkins?
No, we lived at Hulka, and we lived at Buckhorn, and we lived.
Did we live in Hulk after Ray was born?
No.
No.
We moved out between Hulka
that's one thing.
Belden.
I can remember everything, but I've got to get that in my mind more now.
Well, now wait a minute. In the summer, I guess it was the first summer after Chunk was born, we moved out between Pontotoc and Belden. That's where Bud come out there and spent a couple of weeks with us.
Oh, yeah, that was,
out there on Old Man, I can't think of that old man.
Oh, we lived there close to that store.
No, we didn't live close to the store. We lived in this old log house where them old... Where them three old boys lived in one end of the log house.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They was cutting timber.
Yeah, I forgot where that was at.
Their names was Nichols.
Yeah, I remember had that homebrew in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
3 brothers lived in one room, this old log house that we lived in. This old log cabin with a hall, but between our part and their part, they had one room.
Well, where was Mr. and Miss Crocker then? Where were they?
They was there.
They were there? Pa and Mom was there?
Yeah.
Yeah, they lived there.
There sure was.
Everywhere we went, not every place.
I remember he come up there to the mill one day, and he lay down there and had his head on the end of a old rotten log at the end of the mill.
You talking about Paul Crocker?
Yeah. And he come up from there, and he said, "What the hell?" And he looked around, and a darn snake had his head run out this rotten log right to the side of his head. And that was something. But those old Nichols boys, they were 3 brothers. They was cutting timber for the mill, and finally one of them started working with me at the mill. And there was Herschel, and that was the oldest one. And one of them got killed later on. I don't know if I ever told you about it.
I don't know.
There was Herschel and Earl, and the youngest one,
They were pretty good old boys, wasn't they?
Yeah, 4 dumb old country boys that didn't have sense enough to come in out of the rain, but they couldn't help that. They were still pretty good old boys.
Well, where'd we live at now when me and you got in that little old car of yours, James? And Ray was just a pretty good-sized little baby. And we went down to your mama's to spend the day one Sunday. And she had Ray a cap crocheted and a dress made and I don't know what all. Now, where would we live at?
What kind of car did we have?
Oh, you had that little old Model T, little pickup of a thing, you know. James was in there with us and Ray. It's the first time Ray had been out anywhere after he was born, you know. He's just a small baby.
Well, along about the time he was born, your daddy walked across the woods there in a nigger settlement and bought a darn T-model for $5 that had been sitting up there till the tires had rotted off of it. Didn't even have any tires on it. I don't know how long it had been sitting there. But he bought it for $5 on the credit. Come back all excited, telling me about it. And I went over there and got the darn thing started. And I don't know, it's probably been sitting there 5 or 6 years.
He gave it to you, then?
Yeah. But I drove that thing